Hey guys, Pete here. Wanted to put together a video today based on some comments I've gotten recently. Also, I had this experience the other day that brought the first part to mind, so a new video is born. Speaking of new, the new book giveaway is officially underway, so stick around to the end of the video to learn more about that. As far as spoilers, it will deal a lot with the overall story, but not so much on specific current events. Some spoilers if you're in between seasons 5 and 6 of watching the show, but nothing that will ruin the show or books for you otherwise. So with that out of the way, let's get right into it. On the Jon and Rhaegal video I put out yesterday, I had a couple comments about how people hoped Jon wouldn't ride a dragon under any circumstance because they felt it would be cheesy. That somehow this great exciting story would end up being nothing more than a fairy tale or worse, a cliche. Even though I couldn't disagree more, I get it. Dragons are the stuff of kid stories that only people who are full-blown Renaissance fair junkies think are cool. Not that there's anything wrong with the Renaissance fairs and fantasy in general, but I think we can agree that those things only represent a small percentage of popular culture. My experience with Game of Thrones and then later with reading the books was this. I hadn't been watching a lot of TV shows when season 1 came out, but inevitably started to hear more and more people talking about it. Sometime during season 2, a lot of people were starting to get hooked, so I asked someone about it. I can't remember precisely if they mentioned it had dragons or dragon eggs in it because the word dragon was enough. I was like, oh cool, it's got dragons? That's not something I would like. Bring this up because I was reminded about it 2 nights ago. Right now I'm in a country that's about 9,000 miles away from where I grew up. Different in a lot of ways, especially culturally. I met up with a local guy who grew up here who's a Game of Thrones fan, and when we were out and about talking about the show, he mentioned that he had the exact same experience. He had heard the show had dragons and wasn't interested. So the moral of the story is that the relative uncoolness of flying magical beasts crosses multiple cultures. Now obviously I've evolved on the subject. After all, I'm making my second dragon-related video in as many days. I started watching the show, realized it was a good story, and eventually became hooked as soon as Ned lost his head. In the beginning, when I told people about the show, I'd actually even say things like, it has some magic and stuff, but it doesn't take away from the show. Here's the thing though, dragons in general may be the things of children's stories. They may even be the spirit animal of the biggest weirdo you've ever met. But take a step back and think about the role they play in this completely made up world we all casually talk about in the comments like it's real. Besides the men and everything else that inhabits this world, one of the forces of nature that shaped it are the dragons. The Valyrian Freehold is the mightiest empire that Planetos has likely ever known. They were far more technologically advanced than their neighbors and basically held on to their power through their dragons. Now, despite being so advanced, they weren't the greatest people. They had this super weapon and they used it to enslave other civilizations to do their dirty work of mining for them. Eventually the Doom came and wiped them all out, except for one Dragon Lord family who got the idea from a dream to close up shop and move closer to Westeros. This of course was the Targaryen family who used their dragons to conquer the entirety of their new home. It didn't happen overnight, but they used their super weapon to rule over all the long existing kingdoms that made up Westeros. So you see what the dragons are. They're weapons, and they're effective ones that there isn't a great counter for. Like think about Cersei's super weapon, the Mountain. Not much use against a dragon or 3. In fact, that Targaryens only had problems when they started fighting against each other. Their dragons didn't die off until the dance, and they didn't lose the Iron Throne until about 150 years after they lost their dragons. Would there have been a successful rebellion if they still had them? Probably not. Anyways, in my War for the Dawn video, I laid out my thinking in relation to another supernatural force in this world that's advancing towards humanity. The White Walkers who raise the dead to fight for them are headed in man's direction, and by man I mean mankind. They haven't done anything like this for about 8,000 years, and back then it was pretty devastating. To put it into perspective on how a special weapon might be needed, just think about Bran's direwolf Summer. Bravely, Summer sacrificed himself to slow the Whites down, and it didn't work at all. Like he didn't even hold them up or buy them 5 extra seconds. So if you're really hoping to see Jon fighting alongside Ghost, taking out the White Walkers one by one, be careful what you wish for. The dragons, on the other hand, are weapons of mass destruction, and one that our pals are going to need before the series ends. If it's any consolation, at least the breaker of chains and the guy who only ever wanted to be accepted into the family that raised him are the ones who are closest to this powerful weapon right now. I mean, it could be worse. What if Littlefinger had had dragons, or Euron. That's not how the story is set up though. And that's why Game of Thrones dragons are actually cool and not cheesy at all. In the past, people who used them as a weapon for personal gain or to suppress other people eventually fell. Here they actually serve a purpose, and in that sense, they make the story better when you look at the big picture. So I'm not saying that the War for the Dawn and nothing surprising is going to happen there, but it's going to happen. And whether the dragons open the door for a diplomatic solution or they're just a powerful weapon that destroys the White Walkers, one way or another, they're essential to even the score. The other thing I wanted to address in this video is a comment I got over and over again. It's the idea that Bran will use his warging abilities to skin change one of the remaining dragons, thus becoming like the third head of the dragon. It comes from the idea that the three-eyed raven told him that he wouldn't be able to walk again, but he would fly. I've never been a fan of this theory for several reasons, and so I'm biased about it for sure. It's not outside the realm of possibilities, but there are a lot of strong arguments against it. Personally, I believe that when the Bloodraven said that, what he meant was that Bran would be able to leave where he was under the tree and fly by looking through the weirwoods. Of course, he can also skin change ravens and stuff like that, but I don't think that's what he meant. The simplest example I can think of to explain why is that he says you won't walk. When Bran enters Summer or Hodor, he does actually walk. So even though he can fly through ravens, it just doesn't make sense that this was the meaning behind what he said. For me, this means he didn't say it to give us a clue that Bran would eventually take over one of the dragons. I could be wrong here, and I wouldn't be totally upset if the story works, but that's just how I feel about it. There's also the whole Varamir story and the cautioning from his mentor Hagen about taking over people. When Varamir tries to do it, it doesn't end well, which makes me believe something similar would probably happen with a dragon. Plus, on top of that, there's no history of a person ever skin changing a dragon in any of the stories. As far as that third dragon is concerned, that's another video altogether. Like dragon video number 5 from a person that was skeptical about ever starting to watch the show because they were involved in the first place. Anyways, that's what I think about the Bran will warg a dragon theory. Flame away in the comments if you like, but also leave a comment if you agree. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to become eligible for the new giveaway. Also, follow me on my social media accounts. You can find the links in the video description or on my channel page, and I'm always on Twitter when I'm not on YouTube. About the giveaway, when I hit 28,000 subscribers, I will give one lucky commenting fan a copy of the great looking 20th anniversary edition of Game of Thrones. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and comment on any or all of the videos where I mentioned the giveaway. For more info on how it works, you can check out my Dragonstone video to see how the winner was selected in the first giveaway. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.